After waking up, I have to slither myself away from Scarlet. She once again had her arms and tail wrapped around me, kinda tight, but not so tight that I can't pull them off. At least today is only on my arm and not on my chest like sometimes she likes to do. That gets annoying. As I climb out of bed, I think to myself, please don't wake up. Please don't wake up. Reason being, I'm 15, and the normal male issue upon waking up is making things hard, difficult, we'll say, to maneuver without smacking Scarlet by accident. I swear, her tail also gravitates towards the heat from when my blood pumps, but whatever. After unwrapping myself from her, I go to get dressed. That is, until something hits me, kinda hard. I hear the flapping of wings right before the strike as Scarlet had jumped from the bed and onto my back and knocked me right onto the ground. Okay, I said. That hurt. Rolling over, Scarlet jumps onto my torso. Jubilantly and very quickly, she starts ranting about today she's going to get a new little brother or sister, and how excited she is about the ceremony, and how I need to hurry up and get dressed and get ready. If I wasn't in the way, she would have already taken off, opened the door, and bolted down the stairs to meet with Mother and Father. But quickly, I got to my feet as she reached for the door and pushed the door shut. Scarlet looked at me confused. With questioning eyes, I had to remind her that she wasn't wearing anything. She gives me that same look every single time as she's perturbed at the way I say things, how I demand that she put something on, and she's content the way she is, which I understand because so many times if she wears anything when she sleeps, she doesn't stop moving. In fact, she'll end up tearing it apart. Many times she'll tear the sheets, the blanket, and me in the process. So we just let her go, but she has to wear at least something. As she gets dressed, I do the same, and this time I put on a red robe. It's meant to signify the passion of life, and this one's actually two pieces, not one. I was thinking about the first one, how it was basically just a dress, but the second one was more like a robe tied with some sort of strange cloth belt. And now this one, well, it's a pants and top. The black stripes on the sleeves are meant to signify the end of an era that started with the white robe, which I simply just call a dress. As I reach for the pants, Scarlet bolts out of the room in her white dress flapping behind her. I'm so glad I keep getting her upgraded in a new one because I swear she will run out of that thing one day. The door is slammed open, and when I goes to close it, Mother is walking in. She paused to see me walking around with my pants in hand and not on my person, and then she says something along the lines of, "Someone is a healthy boy for sure." Slightly confused at the words, I noticed her eyes were not looking into my eyes, but somewhere else. Before I could say anything, she said, "Breakfast is waiting," and then, smirking, she turned and left. At this point, I just rolled my eyes and got dressed. The breakfast itself was very hearty. Fresh eggs, meat, some pan-fried potato pieces, which I showed them how to make, fresh milk, and my family there too. I would have had another glass of milk as we talked over breakfast, but most of the milk went to the puppy. Beth finally let the little Fenrir walk on its own four legs. After the pup finished off its milk, which definitely did not take long, he just basically yawned and it was gone, I cut off a small piece of the meat from my place, about the size of a pinky nail, and gave it to him. Normally, I don't feed a puppy meat right away, but this is definitely no normal dog. We each gave him a small piece of our own rations, but we didn't want to give him anything overly substantial. I mean, he might not be a dog, but he is still a puppy at the moment. Jake gave his piece, and then he ate while Goldie stood right behind him. She had her back actually towards us, and for a moment I wanted to know what the hell she was doing, but I found out it was for a good reason. in her surprisingly soft hands for a golem, she held Jake's new daughter. The Dryad had not even been given a name yet, but at least it was able to sit there and eat. And by that, I meant eat the sunlight. Goldie kept her in the sunlight so that she could go through photosynthesis. Her green tinted hair could be seen draped over Goldie's hands. She stood perfectly still and seemed to have a little bit of wonder in her eyes, as well as a look of almost pride in this little bitty dryad that she held. It was confusing to see, but I wasn't going to argue with it anything. Mother and father looked so proud at all of us children and asked what type of familiars we might see. This is the third one for me, and I'm the oldest, so this is going to be my third and final one after all. After breakfast, we head down to the arena. The streets are fairly packed, as everybody who still has a summoned familiar seems to be bringing them with them. As we walk, Scarlet is so happy. I swear she's about to start bouncing off the buildings. She's so excited what's going on. Eventually, I had to hold her by the hand and actually hold her tighter and tighter to make things difficult for her to move. Though she did pull, she did try, and she wanted to go and say hi to just about everybody, but we had a time schedule to keep. It got so bad, I eventually picked her up and put her on my shoulders as she simply went and waved at everybody and seemed like she knew everybody's name, too. Father also does the same thing with Beth, as she is also really small. Beth had also got permission to bring her familiar from the last time she was there, but she was warned about it that it would only be this time. Reason being that during the third summons, there's a high chance of a strong summon familiar. It might frighten a brand new familiar, both the puppy and the dryad, and the dryad at least was still home under Goldie's care. I think the dryad was just going to sit there anyway and just soak up as much sun as possible. We separate almost as soon as we get in. Me and Scarlet head one way and the family heads another, and I head down to the main floor. On the way, certain familiars stick out. The large wings of an adolescent griffin are clear, as it seems as though it wants to either show off or stretches them out way out there. It's very easy to see them. I had to pass by and pause to say hi to Sven. I was curious if he had actually earned his title yet, since he got the griffin and seems like the griffin's growing well. Of course, the first thing Scarlet wanted to do was pet the griffin. Sven spoke in that same robotic tone he always had. Yet, as I congratulated him on his promotion, I mean, not just the new title, but actually promoted, but the fact that he was at the top of his class and he just recently joined, this is a big deal. As I was shaking his hand, Scarlet was able to walk up to the griffin and softly caress its beak, and then reach over and pet its feathers, ending with scratching part of the main body, which seemed to make the griffin seem calm, very calm, to the point where I thought it would just fall asleep. This surprised the crap out of Sven, as his griffin is very well trained, but rarely lets anyone within arm's reach, let alone pet it. When I reached for Scarlet, the griffin actually seemed to turn and stop having fun and seemed to stare at me as though I was going to do something bad to his new friend. As it seemed to get ready to lunge, Sven actually got in between, calmed everything down, and the griffin, even though it was calm, it just kept staring at me. And it took a full minute before I even realized that it was not just looking into my eyes, it was looking at my heart. I felt stupid, as griffins and phoenix tend to fight over territory. Normally, they don't fight each other unless one gets either too close or actually does invade the territory. And since I was standing so close, well, there you go. I got a phoenix sitting right in my chest right now. And once I secured Scarlet back on my shoulders, I definitely headed off to see others, as I did not want to be near this thing, as it was going to try and rip out my heart. We didn't have to go too far, as Olaf actually came up with his eldest daughter in tow, and his youngest one actually latched onto his back, all her arms and legs actually wrapped around him like an actual spider, even though these are pretty much human arms and legs. We both put the girls down so they could sit there and talk while me and Olaf decided to chat. I say chat, but mostly he was ranting, as he told me that the business is having a lot of issues without me around. Maintenance is falling behind. More entertainers are simply awaiting their recuperative treatments, i.e., the massage I give them, where they don't know I'm using Blaze's power. The mistress is bored out of her mind without Scarlet and without me to receive the lessons. And even my instructor is being a little more carried away with the unruly clientele. Supposedly, he has actually started breaking bones with much higher frequency when he's only supposed to throw somebody out. We laugh at everything a bit, and I thanked him again for the clothing of Scarlet, because it does fit her well, and she does look great in it. Room for her wings, room for her tail, and at least he didn't design it where every time she lifts her tail, she flashes her butt. Olaf was quick to point out that his girls were actually ones that designed and create those garments in particular. At that point, I turned and got the two arachnids' attention, and even got down and thanked them both for their marvelous work. For some reason, the eldest seemed to blush at being praised, but the second one just said thank you and just turned back to Scarlet. As a group, we went to talk with others, and we saw Lisa's unicorn, which, well, let's just say it's pretty hard to miss that thing. The solid white stuck out amongst a sea of red. And as we approached, Lisa saw me, ran up to give me a hug, and as I hugged her, I lifted her up and spun her around just like old times. As I spun her around, her long black hair contrasting with her unbelievably pale skin. I mean, come to think of it, she was a halfling after all. Even though well, now she's almost as tall as I am, but that's thanks to the residence of that unicorn. As I hug her, something pushes against me. Or should I say, two large things are pushing against me. As I let her go and she steps back for us to talk, I keep thinking to myself, look in her eyes. Keep looking in her eyes. Don't look anywhere but her eyes. We talked some more, and she mentioned how she had actually risen through the ranks as well. And it just doesn't surprise me at all, because she was always very, well, diligent in what she did. And now she has these powers, so mix them together, and what do you got? She was now a full sage. And at such a young age, when she told me this, I was just amazed. And she was well on her way to becoming a holy sage at this point. I mentioned how I knew she would. How she would reach the level of a godly sage for sure. Hell, probably before she even reaches the age of 40. She looked unsure of herself, but I was absolutely adamant as I told her how much I believe in her. She smiled and almost seemed to dismiss my words until I grabbed her by the shoulders and stated how much I truly believe in her. Olaf tried to agree. I mean, it was his sister after all. That is until a sudden weight struck me, and all of a sudden, I'm on the ground. Something landed on me, and it was growling. Before I could do anything, Lisa had already pulled off her little kitsune, and she was telling that little vixen to calm down as Olaf sat there and helped me up. I told Lisa it's okay, and I even got down on one knee to eye level with that little furry tail fireball, and told her she actually did the right thing by protecting her mother. I even shook her hand to show there was no hard feelings, and she seemed to smile. She, of course, did look up at Lisa first to see her reaction, but then she realized, okay, I did what I was supposed to. This is good. I stood back up and had to readjust the top of my robe. As I did, I wondered why the word yukata kept going through my mind. I've never heard that word before. Why is it in my head? This is weird. I tried to shove it away, and I opened the top for only a moment to adjust before closing it. The unicorn suddenly seemed to bleat, and I looked up as I tied my top. Lisa was there, standing and blushing. I tried to lighten the mood with, I guess you enjoyed the brief view? It is fortunate that I did not have to adjust my trousers. You would have likely fainted, and the pixies would have definitely been frightened. This broke the tension for sure, but just a little bit. But I couldn't help but notice the fact that Lisa is actually filling out her robe a lot. I put it as a side effect of her transformation, but then I thought about it. She's a halfling after all. She started out that way before she got adjusted by residents, and every single halfling female is very busty, without exception. But just as I finished tying the last part of this robe, another old friend arrives. Normally she is subdued, but now she's making one hell of an entrance, riding on the back of that giant lizard. Roxanne arrives, not quite riding the lizard, as she actually has to stand up on its back and kind of hold on to a harness piece to make sure she doesn't fall over. I look at this damn thing, and from snout to tail, the damn thing's got to be at least 7 meters long. I worry a bit at this point because I think, wait a minute, lizards just keep growing. They're indeterminate growers. They just keep going. And this one is only, 10 years old? Holy crap, this thing's going to be huge. Though it is much slower rate of growth over time, it's still going to just keep going. On its back is that same platform that allows Roxanne to stand, and the rope with a handle that reaches up in front corners so that she can stay herself on said platform, and it keeps her upright as the salamander moves left and right. They're not elegant like a horse at all. They don't just go up and down. No, this lizard twists a lot. The salamander, being a dark crimson and stone gray, melts into the sea of red robes, if not so huge. The little girl, holding on to her legs, sticks out in the white, slightly layered dress. The white of the dress complements the snow white skin, and her hair so dark it actually seems to swallow the light around it. This little girl's hair dumps down her back, forming a strange pattern, and the sides of her dress also seem to have a strange pattern as well. It's like one of those tests where they ask you, what do you see? The black and the white. It seems to constantly be moving, but it's almost hypnotic. Yet she still looks like the frightened 5-year-old girl she actually is. She's looking around. I don't believe she likes crowds as she seems to hold on to her mother's leg tighter and tighter. As the big lizard halts, it seems to simply lie down. Once it does, Roxanne picks up her little Yuki-onna daughter and carries her down to the floor. She walks towards us and puts her daughter down so that she could play with the other little, I guess you could say girls, because they're not human for sure, but hey, why not? I grin a little bit as we watch Scarlet lead the Kitsune and 2 little Arachne to say hi to that little snow girl that seems to still be nervous. Roxanne gives me a big hug as soon as she walks up, and I notice she is also developing. Though tieflings usually don't get super busty, it's clear that puberty has been treating her very well, and I'm sure considering she's been working with the knight, she eats well as well. As her arms are actually around me, I swear she's actually tracing the muscles on my back the way her hands are going. I could feel something in that moment. Things I usually feel only at work. I can feel passion. Just like when Lisa gave me a hug, but I also feel malice coming from behind me. I act as though I had not noticed, but the unicorn whinnied only a moment before Roxanne let go. Both Roxanne and Lisa saw each other and gave each other a hug. Yet I swear that everybody around us seemed to pause as they could feel energy emanating off both of them. Thanks to my resonance with Scarlet, I was sensitive to such things. I got next to them and said, I am unaware of the reason that has compelled both of you to have such vile feelings at this moment. Yet I ask that both of you relinquish said emotions. You're actually getting the familiars upset. They both paused for a second, not only looking at their familiars, but also other ones, and the distress on all their faces was apparent. I then say, there's perhaps a process that will halt your ill feelings towards each other then. They both looked inquisitive, so I reached my arms around both of them, right around the small of their back, pulled them in close so we're right next to each other, and I said, now kiss and make up. They look at each other, then me, and saw my resolve by holding both of them pretty hard. They both agree, if not extremely hesitantly, but then I use a trick from work. I once again use my resonance from Scarlet, emphasized by a little bit of extra power from Blaze, and I float it into their bodies. I used this on a higher setting on two entertainers that were arguing over a client, but this time you didn't need anything that strong. When Roxanne and Lisa gave each other just that little peck, I pulsed energy into them. The slight rush of dopamine will actually trick their psyche to beginning to like someone that they actually don't. A bit twisted, perhaps, but thanks to this, everything seemed to calm down, and pretty soon the ceremony was about to begin. As the ceremony began, once again I asked Lisa if Scarlet could actually get on the unicorn's back, and once again they were hesitant, even more so this time. And I asked if Lisa thought so low of me. This made her hesitate, and in that moment I simply picked up Scarlet and placed her on the unicorn's back, along with a certain Kitsune. Once again, the golden horn of the unicorn glowed, this time an even brighter color. One of the arachne, the older of the two, was placed on the unicorn's back as well, causing the unicorn to actually glow even brighter than before. Lisa had to explain that the more pure maidens that were on the unicorn's back, the stronger it gets. With three on its back, the unicorn is actually buzzing with power. It's basically high right now. I looked at the snow girl and the young arachne, and they were actually on the salamander on the platform, and I was grateful that they had the option for the lizard, and not anymore, because the last thing we need is one of these things going crazy. Besides, the platform is a little more spacious, as three girls were going to be a little cramped. The ceremony began with the typical long-winded speeches. As they talked, I noticed some things. There was more knights around than before. A lot more. Not only that, but they were all very well armed. At a glance, you might miss it, but they tried to hide it. And there were also battle golems on standby. A battle golem is a type of wearable golem that stands about 25 feet tall. They are exceptionally rare to summon. In fact, even more rare than summoning a regular golem. And normally you only see them outside the royal court. They're so rare that they're only held close to the family. I was confused, so I listened more intently to what the cleric had to say. That is when I heard something. I heard fear in her voice. It was subtle, but it was there. She mentioned how recently there was a rise in the amount of very rare as well as very powerful summoned creatures in the past decade. I heard rumors, of course, but I wasn't completely sure until this moment. And now I know all the rumors had to be true. A high amount of minotaurs, giants, the basilisk, it was crazy. And it wasn't just one either. There was also rumors of hydras, high demons, orcs, advanced goblins, and these are all male, which makes them very, very bad, and a plethora of other creatures that I had just heard about in passing or heard as rumors, like the infamous Mekele Mbembe. I never thought I'd ever even hear of one actually living, but the rumor said that one was summoned just the previous 2 months ago. History has actually reported this as an anomaly, and it usually foreshadows dark times in history. The cleric emphasized this. She emphasized how there could be a rebellion of a nation that razes a country to the ground, a natural disaster that would cause massive casualties or wipe out all life on the planet without the help of the summoned familiars to aid. A war that is massively destructive to all life in its path and its wake. This made me concerned for sure, and I was grateful for the additional security, but I worried too. They might get trigger happy. And as I thought that, I was like, what the hell is a trigger happy? Whatever. Weird words in my brain again. I worried they would use these weapons and magic to end peaceful familiars, thinking that they were dangerous. Because of this thought in my head, I listened to the entire long winded speech, full of half truths and hyperbole, but if you knew how to cut through it, you could hear something interesting. I couldn't see the knights' faces, but their body language at certain points betrayed them, and I guess the rumors of certain very, very dangerous creatures had to be true. Finally, we got to the summonings. I watch, as I'm always one of the last ones to be called, and as they begin, I once again notice how many are actually missing one or both of their previous summoned familiars. I felt bad for them, of course, but that is just how life is. I feel warmth in my chest when I think about this, and I look at Scarlet on the unicorn, and I silently thank who or whatever allowed me to be so lucky. I watch as several powerful summons are brought forth. Orcs come out, both male and female. Orcs themselves, dangerous for sure, but not on the prohibited list. Several baby elves are actually summoned this time, which surprised me, along with a bunch of beastkin that were summoned, to include Kinsunes. They're all brought forth. There's a couple of gargoyles that came in. A golem that looks actually smaller than Goldie. I looked a little sideways at it, then I looked up at Scarlet, and she even said the same thing. Isn't that one smaller? I didn't have a word for it. Maybe it was perception, but it will take a lot more power to shape it into something larger, more humanoid. The problem is, the summoner is already 15. Usually, you only have another few years before your magic just stops evolving, stops growing, period, and you got what you got. So I don't know how well that one's going to shape up. Everyone got nervous when a male goblin was brought forth in the summoning, and the little lady that summoned it actually tried to protect it. That is, until it clawed her face and tried to push itself onto her face. A truly, truly disgusting sight. Yet seeing her feline familiar, the size of a bobcat, jump on it and rip through this new familiar, and then simply dragged it off to the side, proud of the kill. The knights immediately took the girl to get treated, and I felt horrible. I knew this girl. She didn't deserve that. She might have been one of the popular girls, but she did not deserve to get half of her face ripped off. She may be from a wealthy family and all, but still, no girl deserves that. When the Cyclops was summoned, it made a lot of folks nervous. At least until it stood there, reached out, and hugged the boy that summoned it. Although the biggest surprise came when Sven took to the circle. His very well-behaved griffin followed him up onto the stage, but before he entered the circle, the griffin simply sat down and got quiet and just stared. Sven was in the circle, and the circle illuminated as it always does, and then a massive flash. And as I looked, I couldn't believe it. Another egg? This egg cracked immediately, and it turns out Olaf isn't the only one to roll double sixes. Sven reached down and picked up the baby griffin. As he did, his first summons slowly approached him. It looked at the griffin and it cooed a bit, just a little, and Sven's stone face showed true joy, and tears streaked down his face for the first time as he simply said, "It's a girl." The realization hit me like a brick in the balls. Sven, who lost his family when he was at a young age, long story, don't ask, which is why he had become so, for lack of a better term, wooden. And now he has a male and female griffin. In other words, now he has a complete family. He stood tall with the entire arena cheering for him and clapping. The knights that already looked at him as a prodigy escorted him off the stage, and he was just standing tall and proud as he did. As the brokers moved in, the knights were less than kind to him. This was severely noted as the sounds of an arm being broken and a scream of sheer pain crossed the arena. Though many shivered at the sound, when I realized who was in pain, who was on the ground screaming for any type of healer to show up, my only thought was, serves you right, asshole. The next one to be called, at least that I know of, was Olaf. These two girls moving gracefully on their multiple legs. They moved so well that you would almost think that they were floating in those dresses. The youngest actually didn't want to sit and tried to join him in the circle, but as he got up and walked her back outside, everybody seemed to chuckle and nobody took it personal. This is not a disgrace. This is just a young child being a young child. When Olaf actually returned his youngest, I looked at Olaf and the oldest and I was, well, almost chuckling. The fact that he's in halfling didn't cross my mind, and now I realize that she is probably taller than he is. But it shouldn't be funny, but it kind of is. Returned to the circle, I saw Olaf clear his mind, place his hands down, and a light shined. After a burst of light, we all looked to see his new familiar. It was a giant, a baby as big as his youngest was there. It was humanoid for sure, but the strange shade of pale skin and the red hair gave it away, along with the large size, of course. I looked close and I could see there was really no physical difference between a giant and a normal human except for the size. And there was one other difference. The difference is that the knights instantly moved in. They surrounded Olaf in a quick motion that made the two arachne come run up and hug onto Olaf. They stood there trying to protect him and the new one with their bodies. As they stood to protect him, the knight's commander simply addressed them and welcomed Olaf to the knights. Olaf quickly looked at them and very colorfully told him that he is of age and he has the right to refuse at this point. The knight commander was insistent, but kept his voice low, very low, to the point that I could barely hear him. Yet Olaf, not being a complete and total moron, yelled the sentence back to the commander with enough octave that allowed everyone to hear, basically repeating what the commander was saying so that there was absolutely no confusion. It didn't take long for Olaf to sway the public, and the knights could actually see that the public was getting more than a little agitated at their idea of just simply dragging someone who was of age into the knights. Usually this is only done because if you don't, their power might get out of hand and might hurt a lot of people. Also, since the giant is not a prohibited item, nor on the confiscate list, due to lack of magic affinity and almost nothing else, the knights really had no leg to stand on. They did back away, and Olaf was able to slowly get his new child off the stage. Thinking for just a moment, I realized something that most didn't. Olaf and his girls make so much money with their clothes. I mean, especially the undergarments. Once they started pumping those out, every single lady wanted it. Rich or not, didn't matter. They're selling them not just to the bordellos, but they're also selling to wealthy women who pay extremely well for the sheer clothing that's very difficult to damage unless you're really trying. Yet, for some strange reason, they always seem to get damaged. Seems like people got a little too frantic. Some might think, just from outside looking in, that Olaf's going to have problems raising such a child, as giants need a lot of care, a lot of food, a lot of furniture, because they're going to break a lot of things. But I smile because I know they're going to be just fine. Out of everybody else I would consider a friend, Lisa was the next to be called, and for that, I had to get Scarlet off the unicorn's back. The unicorn clearly wanted Scarlet to stay right where she was, but Lisa convinced her otherwise by basically pulling on the familiar contract. After getting Scarlet down, Lisa brought her unicorn in tow with her, with the kitsune still on her back. The little girl looked like a doll on the back of that unicorn as she simply clenched the mane, holding it real tight, and I could see that she was straining with her legs, trying to just hold on to the back of this very elegant horse. I think she was a bit scared, but she stayed perfectly still, again, like a little china doll, as did the unicorn, as Lisa stepped inside the circle. But she stopped for a second, and she looked around for a moment, and I swear she looked at me. Then she took a breath, kneeled down, and let her power flow. The light that arrived did not come from the circle, at least, not just from the circle. Above her, pushed against the top of the arena, a brighter light than ever before had arrived. A light that was so bright that I had to squint my eyes, almost completely closing them, but the light was warm. It was inviting. It was comforting. And it made me almost like draw into it. Scarlet covered herself from this as the pillar of light from top to bottom merged into one. She was right on my shoulders, and yet I could feel her arms not only wrap around me, but wrap around herself as well. The light then dissipated, and I was seeing spots as I opened my eyes, only to look up at the summoning circle and see an angel. A real, honest to God angel. A child for sure, an infant, but the wings of white feathers were completely unmistakable. I wondered if it was a harpy at first, but harpies never have white feathers. It's either blue or red or some mix of different colors. Lisa reached down, picked up the child, and held it close as her other two familiars came in close. The unicorn slowly coming up, and the kitsune looking over the top, now curious, not scared. Then it happened. The resonance so strong that it almost put me to the ground. On my shoulders, Scarlet winced in pain and actually dug her nails into me a little bit. I had to reach up really quick to make sure she didn't fall off as I tried to make sure my knees stayed together. As I held her, I looked forward and saw the back of Lisa's dress, the back of that red robe that exploded, and from her back, a pair of wings sprouted out as she screamed in pain. The wings, almost golden in their exterior trim, but solid white, minus the blood that is sprayed across the wings and across the stage. I wanted to run up and help, but I had to hold Scarlet where she was, and I could feel my chest getting hot as Blaze was sending his regeneration abilities through me and into her, making sure nothing had happened. I could actually feel his fear, like he was worried that we were going to disappear or something. As everything seemed to calm down, I could see Scarlet calming herself. Her skin seemed to begin to change a little bit from that red color, almost crimson, but instead now it was darker. I pulled her off my shoulders for a second to look, and it seems as though it wasn't just red, it was also a mix of purple? Her eyes were also a brighter yellow, almost golden as they looked at me. We both then turned to the stage as Lisa had the baby in her arms and new wings out of the small of her back. Massive wings that looked like they were large enough to take her into the skies. Her face is pale, but that's to expected from losing that much blood. And it was a good thing that she was wearing red as well, because, truthfully, I don't want to see that much blood going down a woman's back. It was around that time that the crowd began clapping and cheering for her as she left the stage. I once again saw her as the little girl I once knew, now a woman, a sage, a saint, or perhaps she is an angel. Everyone was shocked, and I felt a little bad for the guy that had to go next. His summons was nothing to sneeze at, for sure. A baby harpy, and he still had the look in his eyes of, that's it, but just for a moment. Still, he picked it up, and he walked proudly right in front of his direwolf that seemed to keep up close and keep wanting to reach up and sniff the new arrival. Soon, it was Roxanne's turn as well. I had to move a little bit as her giant salamander followed her up. I swear, that thing has to have an ego, because the way it was moving, it was like he was trying to make everybody move further and further away than they had to. Yet on its back seemed like a little porcelain doll. That little Yuki Ono was sitting there, and I chuckled as they actually made a show of their powers, though I don't think it was deliberate. The fire of the salamander and the ice of the Yuki Ono created a strange mist, a mist that seemed to simply aid in the effect, the mystery of everything. They both ended up sitting silently as Roxanne entered the circle. Of course, she gave them both a hug before she did that. And I swear, her as well, I saw her turn towards us, look her eyes just right into mine for that one moment. I grinned as the shy girl was now a beautiful woman, one who was on the path that she wanted to be on. Scarlet even noticed and asked me at that moment if Roxana or Lisa was going to be her mommy. I was a little put back by the bluntness of the question, so I just patted her leg as I was still holding her, and I smiled. Scarlet sat back up and looked towards the stage from the perch on my shoulders. We saw Roxanne take the deep breath, focus her magic, and I felt an extra push from her as she sent her energy deep into the circle. The light began to radiate, and then it began to swirl up around her. Like a light tornado, it stretched up to the sky, and just as it reached the top of the arena and grazed the ceiling, the tornado receded back into itself towards the ground. The light was also blinding, especially that final flash, but I could still see just a little bit, and as I looked, I saw a child. A human child in front of her. Confused, Roxanne reached and picked her up. Pausing for a moment, but I didn't know why. Then I saw why. It was a type of fairy or butterfly wings on this little child's back, this little girl. That was strange, as she was far too large for a pixie, and she lacked the pointed ears of a fairy. What the hell is this? I thought to myself. As Roxanne lifted the child up, the wings shuddered and moved. They seemed to almost extend, and they began to shimmer in the light. In my peripheral vision, I saw movements all around them, a lot of movements, and I looked around left and right, and every single pixie, fairy, and even other flying creatures, and even some elves kneeled in respect. I actually said out loud, "Okay, now I am confused." I asked Scarlet if she knew anything, and I even asked Blaze as the salamander and the snow girl on his back approached. The cleric yelled out about another true blessing brought forth to this world. She declared that the queen of the fairies folk, which is a very broad term for any creature that falls under wind magic, has arrived and is in their presence. Roxanne, well, she was just lost. But I started thinking back to my lessons, and I had heard of the Queen of the Fairies. The original name was Iris, but Roxanne had definitely not given her a name yet. That is when the resonance of such a powerful creature spread across us like a tsunami. I was not affected much, but Scarlet and Blaze, I could feel both of them actually clenching, as both of them could feel this power. With each flutter of the iris wings, each of them were feeling a burst of power. This does not go unnoticed by the knights, and they have their weapons at the ready just in case. In terms of power, this iris is on the level of an angel. And it showed as Roxanne's eyes changed from the deep green from before to a shimmering rainbow. The resonance was so strong that the salamander had to end up carrying them off the stage. I was worried until I saw Roxanne get back onto her feet, her eyes still reflecting that rainbow color, but at least she was seemingly able to handle this power now. As everything settled down, Roxanne was right next to Lisa, both showing off their familiars and showing how proud they were of their new children. And seeing this, I wanted to lock that memory forever. But I didn't have time to really focus on it because that's when I was called. I carried Scarlet onto my shoulders until we reached the top. I left her next to the cleric that was desperately trying not to show the contempt a holy cleric had for a 10-year-old succubus. Perhaps it was just the species type she didn't like. Maybe it was the fact that she falls in a demon. I don't know. Perhaps it was the fact that Scarlet was just so damn cute. Perhaps it because Scarlet's wings and tail contrasted with that solid white dress. Perhaps it was simple bias due to rumors, perhaps. I personally think it was jealousy due to the fact that the cleric was quickly advancing in age, and Scarlet, of course, she's so young and pretty. For a time now, I'd been wondering if taking Blaze into the summoning circle would be an issue. Perhaps his powers would cause a misfire. Perhaps the circle wouldn't actually engage at all because there's two of us. I worried about the energy backlash because Blaze is just, even for a baby, he's so powerful. And besides, if there is an energy backlash, that can be lethal, as there's only been one survivor to an energy backlash, and they were very, 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 very messed up. Still, I stepped forward, took a breath, calmed down, kneeled to the ground, placed my hands to the circle, took another deep breath, released it, and along with my powers, all of them, I released every bit of my supply into the summoning circle that I could. As I did, I could feel power surge through my chest like a high-pressure acid through a little bitty straw. The power mixed with mine and surged into the circle. The light of the circle then went up in pillars of light all around me. I'd never seen this before. They were so dense that you actually couldn't see through the light at all. The pillars also began to grow in size. Then they began to spin, slowly at first, and faster and faster and faster, merging into one solid pillar of light around me. All around me, all I could feel is power. It surged through my body, back down through the summoning circle, then back into my body. I was getting so much power into me. It was like I took several shots of espresso plus several syringes of pure adrenaline. With this, I focused it back into the circle itself. The top of the light pillar seemed to peel in, but they weren't not peeling out like a banana peel, but no, they peeled in towards me as though they were trying to reach down and touch the center of the circle where my hands were. I focused more and more on the center, and with an absolute burst of power that nearly picked me up off my knees and tossed me across the room, it was over, and in front of me was an egg? a black and gold egg. An egg that instantly began to crack. Cracks that shot up and down on all sides, top to bottom, left and right, and back and forth again. The egg itself was large, almost as large as me. I thought to myself, if I tried for something that large, I'm sure I could squeeze my 15-year-old body into it. The shell then exploded, pelting the surrounding area with shrapnel. Pieces struck me, of course, but I didn't care. In front of me, opening its wings, opening its eyes, and giving me the cutest little yawn possible was a baby dragon. Not a wyvern, but a full-blown dragon. It looked at me confused, and I looked at it confused as well. I was amazed. I looked at it as my new son, but also, I'm sure the dragon saw the fear in my eyes. Scarlet had run up and had already started to hug me, but not in warmth, but in fear. I looked, and all the knights were quickly getting to their feet as the energy burst from this summon had actually knocked their asses down. Now, they were all drawing very large weapons, weapons strong enough to kill even a dragon. In desperation, I grabbed the baby and screamed, "You will not take him!" It was at that point the resonance of all three of us, me, Scarlet, and Blaze, synchronized. Together, we created an energy barrier that locked us inside. It locked with interlocking flames and seemed to wrap around us. It built up as the knights began to try to blast their way in. I knew we couldn't stay here. Eventually, our powers would run out. The knights are chosen for their power as well, and they would be able to get in soon. My new son cried as he realized what was going on. The fear in his scream was unmistakable, and it was then that his resonance kicked in, giving us all one hell of a power boost. With our power surge over 400%, we sent out a limited range pulse wave. The shield itself exploded, and the power wave swept across everyone on the stage near the summoning circle, and the results were odd. Every knight and cleric, along with whoever climbed into their battle golems, paused as they began to stumble, almost dance in place. Then they all started to make strange noises. They were screaming and moaning as the succubus energy, powered by the phoenix and the dragon resonance, enveloped everyone to the deepest parts of their being. In moments, every knight had either collapsed to their knees or laid on the ground, each one pulsating as all available fluids forcibly ejected from their body with such force that there was a not very loud, but a clear sound of fluid not only exiting, but striking whatever in the hell it's hitting. The cleric, who was actually stronger than the knights, dropped as well. Almost directly in front of me was the lead cleric, who had dropped to her knees, and her head was now facing the sky. Her fluid loss was actually so severe that it appeared that she had just spilled a full case of beer inside her own robes. Both clerics had blank looks on their faces. Unfortunately, I realized they were going into shock, which was not good, as they basically sat there and pulsated as well. I can assume the knights were simultaneously out of it, but I couldn't really see their faces. But not wasting any time, I immediately grabbed the baby and Scarlet, and I simply run for it. To my surprise, as I stood, I felt a deep, sharp pain go all the way down my spine on both sides. I didn't have time to waste, and I ran away from the crowd straight towards the back, and then I felt something else. Sure enough, I sprouted wings. 2 sets, in fact. Running down these hallways, they're currently scraping on the sides of the walls, but I can't stop. As I'm running, I can see there's 2 sets. The larger of the 2 sets is clearly that of a dragon. The smaller set is, I guess, demonic in nature, the way it is. At that moment, I wanted to try flying away, but I don't have time to practice. And since I'm carrying 2 children right now, 3 if you count the one that's buried in my chest, all I can say is I'm trying to go as fast as I can. Feet don't fail me now. I burst out the door and I just pick a direction and run. I get some strange look from the townfolk as I'm running as fast as I can. They're confused at what's actually in my arms and why I suddenly have wings. Yet their confusion is actually my advantage. Because they're confused, no one tries to stop me. And I acknowledge only one person. The mistress was actually coming from the financial district, and I passed right by her. All I can say is I ran by her was sorry. Making out of the town, I take random trails and roads, and I don't stop running no matter what. No matter if Scarlet can no longer hold her liquids, we don't stop. No matter if my new son is so hungry he has to chew a part of my arm off to satiate his hunger, we don't stop. Blaze at that point is working overtime to help keep me going, repairing my body and making sure he's blocking fatigue, and we just keep going. I didn't stop until we cross the Nippic River, which is the border of the country. It is only then that we pause so that the others can stretch and I can puke, which is exactly what I do. My heart's still beating 10,000 miles a minute as though I'm on a straight adrenaline dump, and we've been running for the past 2 days. And we've been running really fast. Scarlet was told why we had to run while we were running, and she understood. Anyone that summons a dragon will immediately see their dragon killed if they even show the slightest bit of aggression. And after that, because of the resonance of the summoner is most likely to be executed. Reason being, dragons are so powerful and so destructive that they're considered far too dangerous. I reminded her of the basilisk and how that the knights, the only reason that they didn't kill him was that the familiar turned out to be kind and very protective of its summoner. What's even worse is that familiars without a summoner are considered a lost commodity and sold at auction. This idea made my skin crawl, my blood boil, and I just wanted to hurt something all at the same time. The family actually has no say in this decision. The familiars don't just fall back to the family. And the thought of what would happen to Scarlet and Blaze, wow, that just got me afraid and just filled me with fear and hate. After a good night's sleep, we had to continue making as much distance as possible. Scarlet actually told me something interesting. She told me to put some power into the wings to get them to operate, and it would actually make me go faster, make me able to fly. And well, it worked. It worked as the force that came out of my back flung me forward with enough pressure to put my face right in the dirt. And we would have to travel half the day running as I carry them, and the other half of them walking so they can actually get some exercise. Because let's face it, being jostled around for 20 hours a day, that's not good for anybody. And we got a long way to go anyway before we reach our destination. Mount Hayes is a known nesting ground for dragons. Though they're never seen there, it's a fact that this is where they live. It's considered an open secret, but not really a secret, which is why that's where we're going. No country wants to even get close because dragons are so dangerous, which is why we only rested after we crossed the river, which was the border of the country. Now we're in neutral territory. This is the buffer zone between the mountain and everyone else. You don't cross it. Yet all this was a plan. It was all based on rumor, but it's better than just heading in a random direction, I think. In the far distance, I can see the mountain ranges, and there is the tallest peak in the middle of all the others. It's way, way out there, so far that I can just barely see the tops. There's one mountain out there which seems to be a bit higher than the others and with a strange, dark color. Not the gray of granite, something deeper. And it's a bit ominous, yet it's the perfect beacon for us to travel during the day. It will still take us days to reach it, probably a few weeks. And, well, it's going to be even longer right now because my tank is completely empty. We set up a hasty camp, and I have to actually teach Scarlet about wilderness survival. Living in the town her entire life means that to a young girl, this is going to be difficult. I teach her how to set up a hasty shelter, instructions pouring out of me as though someone else is actually talking. I hesitate to start a fire as it's going to give away position, and making a fire is not going to be easy as my son can't breathe fire yet. Before we can even think about fire, though, we need some food. And thankfully, this area is very rich in game. Unfortunately, it's the type of game that can hunt us. Breaking a rock and actually using the broken rock to sharpen a stick, I have to do what I must to protect my children. If that means facing a charging boar in a fight to the death, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. And exactly what I did. The small rabbits are far too fast to hunt with a spear, so bigger prey is what's on the menu. That is, as long as I can keep us off the menu. They're not happy at the jerky texture, but I tell them since we did actually get a small fire to cook the meat, and I wouldn't let them eat beforehand, you always look at meat, and if it's even the slightest bit questionable, if it's safe or not, you cook it till it's a brick. We traveled even more for the next few days, the next week even, getting food where we can, constantly having to stop to do so because we're simply blowing through calories at an extreme rate. As good as Blaze is, he's got his limits. I mean, he's still only 5 years old. On top of that, Scarlet's nice clothes are being torn apart by the bush. The material is great stuff, just it's not designed to handle the field like this. At least her shoes are holding up, at least for now. As we stop at another river, she asked me if she can fish, and I just told her, sure, I needed a break anyway. As I built the camp, she took off her shredded dress and waded into the river. She first cleaned off, washed herself, and then she seemed to stand there, just stand perfectly still in hip-deep water. Well, hip-deep for a 10-year-old. I looked over at one point and I wondered what the hell she was doing. That's until I saw her move her arms just a little bit, and then she drove both hands into the water and brought up good-sized fish, one in each hand. Then she threw them directly on the shore and proceeded to pull another 20 fish out of the river in this manner. It was strange. It's like the fish should run away, but it's almost though they were being called to her. My son saw the fish, and he went over, sniffed the fish, and then looked at me. And when I told him he could eat his fill, he proceeded to directly swallow at least a dozen, maybe even more, of the fish. And some of the fish were still wiggling on the way down, which I think he found funny, because I swear he just licked his face afterwards, and then flicked his tail, and then went for another one, especially was still moving. When he was done, this would be the first time I saw the look of true satiation on his face. So much so that he walked over to the little shelter we had, curled up, and was asleep almost instantly. Scarlet and I also had our fill as well, although we actually cooked ours, well, cooked most of it. I say it that way because the roe is something you never turn down. I mean, it's a delicacy after all, no matter where you are. And it's also the most nutrient-dense part of the fish. And after a good filling meal of fish, roe, and we only got rid of the intestines, I wrapped Scarlet up in the top of that robe. I'm done wearing it and she needs something. It may be dirty and it may be messed up, but at least it's better than nothing against the cold and getting colder night air. And it seems like the closer we get to the mountain, the colder the nights get. And the cold actually is an issue for me. Reason being, Blaze keeps me nice and toasty. He is also the reason why we can sleep through the night, as he's completely vigilant the entire night. He could tell where anything is. He could even find out when a bug is trying to climb on us. Only once has he actually needed to wake me up with a very large feline getting close. When he woke me up, he had to tell me what was going on. And I realized that feline was close enough to me next morning's breakfast, which it was. Both Scarlet and my son curl up on me at night because of the warmth, and as we sit watching the fire fade off at night, Scarlet asks me if I would give her new little brother a name. Instantly, he wakes up hearing this, and I can see it in his eyes. He's just waiting there, hoping for it, almost begging like a dog at the table. I told him I wanted a good solid name, but I don't even know what type of dragon you are. Are you elemental, spiritual, or something else? I mean, I was thinking Ormir or Drook or something, but those are already taken. All I know is you're a growing boy. He seemed to understand, but also a bit upset that he would not receive one at that exact moment. Then I said, how about I come up with 3 names and you guys choose? Scarlet immediately jumped up and said, I would like to weigh in on this as well. In that moment, I saw 2 unblinking reptilian eyes going almost straight through me as his face got closer and closer and closer, wagging his tail in anticipation. I thought for a while, and I came up with the names Octavius, Balthazar, and Vicolor. He looked at me like I was completely and totally nuts. Scarlet didn't like them either. And that's when Blaze came up with Rekishin. Hearing me say this name, my new son jumped on me, and I asked if he was actually sure. He licked me really quick and snuggled up to me, and oh God, all I could smell was fish guts. And I told him, then your name is Rekishin. Now I knew the resonance was going to be a bit strong. I was not expecting what happened. A burst of energy so strong I could have run a 4-minute mile at that moment. My night vision suddenly became so good I could see as though it was high noon. I could even see through shadows. It was crazy. The primary set of wings on my back, the larger ones got even larger. This was really interesting, yet an adaptation I was not expecting was the much longer tongue. I'll admit I choked on the damn thing a time or two in my sleep because I didn't realize the way it was supposed to set right. But I learned. Every once in a while I would use it as though I was trying to show it off, and Scarlet would make some sort of comment like, when we get back to work, and then she would say something else. I played it off as we continued to travel. Days had already turned into weeks as we traveled. The forest itself had gotten so damn thick there was no way I could use the accelerated speed, so the wings were more of a hindrance than anything else. I would barely be able to fly myself. I thought maybe I could carry them, but I tried a few times. I could just a little bit get myself off the ground, but adding 2 more passengers? Oh no, I would immediately crash, and I'm not squishing my kids under me. So travel is going to be slow. Only a few dozen more kilometers until we reach the base of the mountains, and we should be safe there. It's all I could think. That's all I told him. Rumor alone will keep others away, make us safe. So I figure even if it turns out to be wrong, at least we could set up shop there. Maybe. At least, that's what I thought. I thought wrong. As we walked under the dense canopy, from the skies, the sound of griffins riding and screeching, along with some actual mechanical aircraft, They're right over top of us. I mean, they're not on us, as in not dropping down, but now we really have to move slow and methodical. We we can't be out in the open at all. And as we move from cover to cover position, I keep thinking, how did they find us? But it didn't take long to figure out. The massive resonance I got from Rakishin was like sending out a damn flare. We all realized, but nobody said anything. In fact, we didn't make any unnecessary sounds at all. From that point, we only move at night. Since we all have excellent night vision, I took the lead and we all traveled silently through the woods, silent as a fart in the wind. Something about moving in a column at night, though. Moving, avoiding patrols, and talking in hand signals seems almost nostalgic. Yet I didn't have time to really think about it. We were nearly boxed in at this point, and I need to do something. We were blocked from the mountain as we tried to skirt by, extending further and further, but it seemed like they had the whole place locked down. It isn't until a few days later that Blaze wakes me up with a start, and I was about to ask why until I heard the canines barking in the distance. I mean, we can dodge Griffin's eyes, and especially the riders. We can hide from those devices that they've flown in, but there's no way we can fool a hound's nose. And now we have no choice but to go through and go for broke. From the sounds of the barking, we have maybe an hour, probably less than an hour, before they're right on top of us, literally. I actually facepalm as I realize they had probably found Scarlet's discarded dress. I'm an idiot, I said to myself, not very loud, but enough to make Scarlet and Rock look at me. We continue to move, and I think I see an opening, and we immediately charge through, trying to get past before they even notice. For the briefest of moments, it looks as though we have gotten through unchecked. Then the knights all start going apeshit. The screams of men and griffins fill the air. I pick up Scarlet and use my acceleration. Rakishan can easily keep up with us, mainly because he came naturally equipped with four-wheel drive, and we take off like a shot. We're almost there. I see the base of the mountain. I pray, please be there. That is when the shooting starts. The impact weapons begin flying past us. There's no actual projectile. It's just a way of manifesting energy through crystal, and then it makes a shot, a pressure wave that stays in very, very tight, smaller than the fist. As they pass us, I can see branches snapping off, foliage scattering. I hear screams that suddenly make my heart drop. I turn, and Rakishin has taken a hit to his upper thigh. I immediately turn back and run to him. Holding Scarlet with one arm, I reach for him, and that is when another shot comes and hits him at the base of the opposite wing from the first strike. Rakishin squeals this time in pain that is unmistakable, and I immediately say, "That's it!" I scream it into the air. Putting Scarlet on the ground as fast as I can, I take a deep breath and I exhale in an inferno from left to right. I hose down the entire forest, and I can only reach about 100 feet if I'm lucky with that first burst, but it's enough to send most of the knights running, while others who didn't run away burn. One in particular, where I started spraying fire, was the one that shot my son's wing. And as I see him on the ground, as his armor's melting towards him, as he's screaming in pain, I just say, "Burn, bitch." I pick both my kids up and I run. Blaze gets to work fixing Rakishin as I try not to pass out from magical overuse. I reach the edge of the mountain. Oh, look good, we're almost there, and slam into an invisible wall, and it sends me backwards. Actually, it sends us all backwards. Getting up, I check, and sure enough, this wall is solid. It's in front of us and we can't go forward. My heart sinks in that moment. All this for nothing. Now they will take my son if they don't kill him outright. If they can't force him into servitude by threatening harm to me or to Scarlet, they're just going to kill him right now. How could I have been so wrong? All I can do now is take as many of these bastards down as possible, causing such destruction that they can possibly get away. Maybe Scarlet, maybe Rockison can run while I draw their attention. As I turn around, I see the knights coming. I turn to the young ones and I say, once I start fighting them, I'm going to drive them back. I want you to run. Run as far away as you can. Do not look back. Scarlet was screaming, Father, Father, no! As she reached up, started pulling on me. Rakishin looked up at me, and then I saw his eyes. That was the eyes of resolve. At that point, he took a fighting stance, facing those that were coming. I was so proud of him in that moment. I guess it's in the blood, as my father and I had been in a similar situation before. As I mustered power up for another round of fire, Scarlet extended her claws and Rakishin tried to build up fire as well. That is when a light so bright that all the knights actually shielded their eyes, a light that came from behind me, with our shadows in front of us. We turned around to see the wall had opened up into a portal to a distant, far away land of stark beauty. Yet what truly caught our attention was not the land itself, but the massive black dragon with strange light blue highlights on it. It was hovering there, using its wings to fly above the ground, not settling just yet. It looked at us as it hovered, and it focused on Rakishin. Noticed he was hurt. Then, after a moment, he seemed to turn towards a particular knight. Parts of this massive body of a dragon began to spark, and I could see power building up at the end of its tail that seemed to have some sort of gem-like appendage on it. And with a flick of its tail, an energy ball is launched, and the knight that had shot my son in the ass was now pink mist from the blue weapon. After that, the black dragon landed on the other side of the portal, and it spoke.
I am Vernon, god of this realm. You have protected one of my kin with your life, and have earned his loyalty, as he would stand next to you in battle. You have earned the right to speak your truth.
As I face this dragon, I refuse to actually bow or kneel, as that is not what I do. But I did say, he is more than just a dragon to me, more than just a familiar. He is my son, my kin as well. However, I am unable to protect him as I am. Due to this, I have failed as a father. My only hope is that you will become a surrogate for him until he is old enough, until he is strong enough to protect himself. I only ask this, dragon god Fernan. Fernan pauses for a minute. Then he raises his head higher, a little bit more. He says,
So be it. As I can see you speak truth, my wife shall lead him through this portal where no others except who I choose may follow.
At that time, 3 catgirl looking females in kimonos come walking out. I give Rekishan a hug before I tell him he has to go. And that is when, hesitantly, with a smile, they lead him away. As they turn around, I see the bushy tail sticking out the back of these kimonos, and I realize that these are actually foxy ladies, kind of like Lisa's familiar. As Rakishin gets to the other side, Fernan says,
The deal is done.
The portal begins to close, not instantly, but fast enough. But not fast enough before I hear my son's cry, a deep cry of loss from any child that has been ripped away from you, and a cry that rips at a parent's very soul. I want to scream as it feels like I just lost a piece of my own soul. Yet a moment later, I'm screaming for another reason as Impact's pulse hits me in the back, almost directly on the spine. I'm not paralyzed, but my legs instantly give out and down I go. Blaze begins recovery that instant, and I'm able to turn around and get to my knees. And that's when I see who shot me. Sven, you dick, I actually say. That stone face is looking back at me holding that pistol. I immediately send a flaming booger in the form of another breath of fire his way. He dodges it, and several others begin shooting. I shove Scarlet away as far as I can as I'm pelted with so much force I can hear ribs crack, an eye socket rupture, and part of my jaw snap. Yet I still scream to her, "Run!" I get one leg up and spread my wings, preparing for an all or nothing when something loud goes off and something strikes true. I look down and there's a hole in my chest. What's worse, I can't feel Blaze. My body begins to fall as I keep saying, "Scarlet, run!" As I hit the ground with my knees, I almost can't stay up. She tries to run, but she's tackled to the ground in just a few moments. I see them putting restraints on her, and she keeps calling Daddy in distress. I'm not healing. I can't move. The world it's going dark. Yet I see another knight raise a weapon. This was not a pulse weapon. This is a projectile weapon that I swear I've seen before, but I can't place where. I don't care, though. I just wanted to save my children. The light's fading now. My soul screams out as I see them pick up Scarlet and drag her away as she's biting and thrashing. I want to go after them. I want to rip all of them to pieces. I try to scream out, but my voice doesn't come. But my soul screams out, "I'm not done yet." As I feel my body shut down, my mind is still clear. Clear enough to hear a voice, not with my ears, but it seems as though it's radiating through me, say,
"No, you are not done yet."
I wonder what the hell it is, and then I hear the voice say,
"Soon, you will be complete."
Hello, everybody. This is Syntax. Thank you for joining me today on this particularly long chapter. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now, before I go, I need to say that today's winner is Julius Boone, with Tim MC coming in second. And I also need to send out some very, very big thank yous to the supporters of this channel, and they are Prozac and Pancakes, SS Demon, Brian Kemp, MTF Guard, Erica Gem, The Wildcat, Guardian Sage, Steve Uwig, Julius Boone, and Sir. Thank you also for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntax.
Ejecting!